We are back on another edition of Beat the Bookie. We're not physically harming anyone, just stealing their money. That's my vertically inclined friend, Austin Barach. I'm Jack Gordon. Austin, what do you plan on doing with all your winnings from today?
I'm going to place all of it on the Los Angeles Lakers to win the NBA title. Certainly, that won't jinx the Lakers.
Okay, I like your thinking.
Yeah,
I like it. You'll have to make another appearance later in the winter for that one. Well, we're planning on winning a lot of money. Someone that didn't recently, that's Mr. Stephen Sklar. Stephen, sorry, we got to go at you a little bit here. You struggled on your last time out. Let's take a peek at his picks from last time around. It certainly wasn't the best. He's been on this show twice now. First one went pretty well, right? Plus 35. Second time around, not too good.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to fly too close to the sun. I think Steven thought, he wins 35 bucks. He's thinking he's a big deal. So he got a little bit of a humble pie, but I saw him this morning. He was back in the gambling cave. He's ready to go for a parlay later this show.
Now, Austin, I see a couple of familiar names on that board. I think both of us have been on this show before. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but back in October I did okay. I might have to carry you a little bit.
You will. I actually was planning on you carrying me for this one. You made all the picks that we did today, so I'm just trying to get out of the red right now. Out of the red, that's my goal for today.
Well, I'm not happy because if you're not first, you're last, right? Jesse Cook blew me out of the water a month later.
I mean, you can't do anything about that. A $20 parlay, I mean, crazy stuff happens. We're going to have to be really lucky to surpass Jesse today.
All right, let's do it, Austin. Let's bounce back. We're starting with conference championships in college football. We're starting with the best game of them all. That's Alabama and Georgia. Right now, Georgia sits at a 5.5 point favorite. That number's been bouncing around 6.5, 5.5. Right now at 5.5. Georgia, they haven't lost this year. Best team in the country, plain and simple. This is the fourth time these two squads are meeting up in the SEC championship. Alabama is 3-0. I think that's going to continue. Bama has been led by one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Jalen Milroe. He's unstoppable right now. Last time out, miracle win over Auburn with that deep shot that he hit on fourth down. He was 16 of 24 in that game. Over 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards on the ground too. One of the best quarterback rushers in this nation. I think he's going to keep that going. One spot you might think Georgia excels in, their run defense, right? It's what they're very good at. There's a hole in it, though. On rushes outside of the tackles, they're giving up over 5.5 yards per carry. 92nd in FBS. Bama, yards outside of the tackles, over 6.5 per carry. 12th in the FBS. I think that's the hole they find. I'm also a little uncomfortable about where the betting is on this game right now. 2/3 of bets are on Georgia at plus 5.5. I'll go with Vegas on this one. They want the Bama plus 5.5. I'll take it. Austin, what do you think?
Jack, it's a really interesting game. I think it can really go both ways, but to me, the storylines are incredible. Georgia, 29 straight victories. The last time that they didn't win was against Alabama. This is a team where Nick Saban, you think of all this SEC supremacy stuff. Oh, Georgia's now the dog, the top dog, pun intended. Saban's 6-1 against them all the time. So you think Bama with the points, probably a safe bet? I don't know. I'm going to ride with you, Jack. I think Bama covers the spread here. Milroe and Jermaine Burton are a deep strike waiting to happen, but the dogs are also pretty good. So I will cautiously back you with Bama on that one.
I love the underlying story in this one of Saban versus Kirby, too. His protege, and he's done well against him, 3-1 in their 4 matchups. I like that you're sticking with me, Austin.
Bama 7-4 against the spread this season. Didn't cover, obviously, last week. They're set for a bounce back in Atlanta. But moving over to Lucas Oil Stadium, Michigan, laying 21.5 against Iowa. And I like the Wolverines a lot. I mean, honestly, both teams 6-6 against the spread. But how can you, in a right mind, bet on the Iowa Hawkeyes? The death of the Big Ten West is here, and it won't be a pretty death. I mean, the Wolverines are a really good team. Obviously, undefeated, just beat Ohio State. No letdown spot. Jim Harbaugh is back, ladies and gentlemen. He's back. This team will roll. Jack, it's an interesting number, but it's a number I feel like Michigan can easily cover.
You know, I'm going to have to agree with you, Austin. A couple of things stick out to me in this matchup that I'll talk about again later on. But Iowa 59th in strength of schedule in the FBS. The Big Ten West is bad.
You're playing Northwestern and Purdue every
Exactly. These are some of the worst offenses in the country. I think it makes their defense look a little overrated. And I think a good kind of marker for this matchup is to look at Iowa against Penn State early in the season. 31-0, they got blown out. I really like Michigan in this one too.
Yeah, and you look at 2 years ago in the Big Ten title game, Michigan played Iowa. 42-3 was the game right there. Last year, Michigan beat Purdue 43-22. That Purdue team was a lot more offensively inclined than this Iowa team. You're insane if you back the Hawkeyes in this one, so the Wolverines will roll.
Well, I think that matchup's going to be largely based on running the ball. Let's talk about another game that's about running the ball. Florida State, Louisville with the ACC on the line. FSU is without its starting quarterback. Jordan Travis still out with that injury, and he'll miss the rest of the year to a gruesome injury that's going to keep him out. Tate Rodemaker filled in for him last time out against Florida. He didn't do too hot, only threw for just over 100 yards. He looked really uncomfortable. Louisville will force Florida State to run the ball, and that's not what you want to do against Louisville. It's a bad matchup for Florida State because the Cardinals have a top 10 run defense. And I know Trey Benson is a good running back. He's very good. 3 touchdowns last time out against Florida. Over 6 yards per carry, that's great. It's just that Louisville knows what to game plan against. They know that they're going to have to run the ball. The Cardinals with a great run defense. And you look at the other side, what Louisville is great at. Yeah, the quarterback Jack Plummer has done okay in his first year, but running the ball, this one pains me to say, as we're sitting right here in Syracuse, Jawar Jordan has lit the ACC on fire, over 1,000 yards, and Florida State doesn't have a great run defense, 45th in the FBS. I think Louisville really takes advantage of that, and I got them covering. I really wouldn't be surprised if they won either, Austin.
I agree with you, Jack. This is a Florida State team where you think if you lose your starting quarterback, can they really win in back-to-back weeks? Sure, you can win in the swamp, and it was an impressive win. They sputted Florida double-digit points out of the gate, but they were poised. They came back, they won the game. I just think there's too many question marks with Florida State right now. And I look at the storylines of the committee, and games matter, and they do matter. And I think Florida State should get in if they win this game by any margin over Louisville. You have to get a Power 5 team undefeated into the college football playoff over a team like Texas that we're going to talk about. But wouldn't it be so easy for the committee if Florida State just loses?
They want that
this
so
is a
bad.
prime spot for the Cardinals. Yeah, a little loss to Kentucky last week. They're flying under the radar a little bit. I think this is where the Cardinals strike.
No, I think you're right, and the committee would love that too, because Florida State in the top 4 would be a sight for sore eyes. Nobody wants to see that team.
Double-digit underdogs.
And you really have to feel bad for them and Mike Norvell because they played so well all season long. This just isn't the team to do it anymore.
Yeah, Louisville is sneaky underrated. Like, they have a ton of all ACC players, so you cannot shortcome this Louisville team despite the loss last week. Absolute bounce back opportunity for the Cardinals. Moving over to Jerry World, where we got Texas and Oklahoma State. And I just tossed my notes aside, so we're going off the cuff right here. This is just too big of a point spread for the Sooners. I mean, the Sooners are 7-4 against the spread this season. Texas has just been up and down. Sure, they blew out Texas Tech by 50 points last week, but in the 3 previous games, they only won by a combined 16 points. I just don't trust the Longhorns enough. Sure, they had the biggest win of the season at Bama, and that should count for something. But I think when you think of all the storylines, Jack, and you open it up to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee too, I think it'd be really, really funny if Texas beats Oklahoma State and they still get left out of the playoff. I just don't trust them to cover more than a 2-touchdown spread. You know,
there definitely is a chance of that happening, Texas winning and not being in the playoff. I think they're going to do more than win in this one. I have to bounce back on that. I think Texas will win and cover. When you look at Oklahoma State, outside of the top 100 in passing yards and rush yards allowed per game, Texas has one of the best offenses in the country. Top 5 against the run, too, and that's Oklahoma State's biggest strength with Ali Gordon. He's been tearing it up this year. They're running back almost 1,600 yards and 20 touchdowns. He's been phenomenal all season long, but that's one of Texas's biggest strengths is defending the run. I think they got this one. I think they'll cover too.
I don't know. History says, I look at the last 4 Big 12 championship games, all 4 of those have been one-score games. So I think this one is tight, and I think there's also backdoor potential for the Sooners. It's a big spread. It's a really big spread. They're not a bad team at all. They blew the brakes off of, well, they didn't blow the brakes off of Oklahoma, but they did enough to win that Bedlam game. Mike Gundy was just announced as a Big 12 Coach of the Year. I think there's enough good juju for the Cowboys to cover the spread against the Longhorns. But let's toss to all of our games right now and see what we have against the C-suite. I mean, Ethan and Jordan have been racking it up all season long here at Beat the Bookie. They got a 2-game lead on the hosts, and look at that picture right there. That's unbelievable.
Find you someone the way that I look at you, Austin. That's what everyone needs in their life right there.
So 4 of the 5 picks are the same here. Again, that Bama-Georgia game is just going to be so much fun. Michigan, I am a little nervous that both we and Ethan and Jordan are rolling with the Wolverines. Louisville seems like too much of a trendy pick, but we still like him. Oklahoma State, I like to see that they're going with me here. And then Oregon, as we're going to dive into, is just going to be a really easy pick.
I agree with you 100%, and I'm glad that they agreed with us on that one too. But this game is kind of the one I'm most excited for, actually. I mean, Bama, Georgia is must-see TV, but this is Friday night, standalone, Pac-12, the last ever Pac-12 game. They got the Pac-2 right now with Washington State, Oregon State, just sad stuff. But Oregon, Washington, game 1 didn't go Oregon's way. Now they're the favorite, and there's a lot of reasons why.
I love Oregon so much in this spot. The team that lost in the first game has an edge in the second game. This is an Oregon team that's just been blowing the brakes off of opponents for a month and a half. Average margin of victory, 26 points. And a lot of common opponents with Washington. Washington, in the same span, since that 3-point win in Seattle over the Ducks, they've won by just 6.5 points per game. They've been hanging on barely. And a lot of people are saying, oh, this is like TCU from last year for Washington. Sure, go ahead. TCU lost in the conference championship game. This is an offense for Washington that's been not as good lately. Ever since they put up, 52 against SC, they've been going downhill. They've been squeaking by. Sure, you can say battle-tested, playing in close games. I think Oregon absolutely stomps them.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, Austin, and I'm glad we're in agreement on this one. It's just not a good matchup for Washington. I don't necessarily think it was the first time around either, but Oregon was really aggressive. They were 0 for 3 on 4th down in some crucial spots. I think that's what the game came down to. This time around, I think Dan Lanning...
He learned from his mistakes.
Exactly. He's going to get them ready, and he'll coach better next time around. He even said, I'll take credit for that loss, which is impressive for a coach to do. Not every coach out there would.
Absolutely.
What I think this game boils down to is the pressure Oregon will put on Michael Penix Jr. And he's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, don't get me wrong. He hasn't faced a ton of pressure overall throughout this season, but Oregon has a really aggressive defense. They get to the quarterback, almost 3 sacks per game. The stat that stood out to me the most in this one, Penix, when he has a clean pocket, which he has much of the season, 73% completion, almost 10 yards per attempt. When he's under pressure, 43%. When he has to move around and make a decision, 30 percentage points worse. I think Oregon pounces on it. I think they get this one done. They cover -9.5, but we've got someone else to make some picks for us today, Austin. We're joined by the man that lost us some money last time around, Stephen Sklar. He's going off the board with some creative picks. Stephen, what do you got?
Austin, Jack, I'll acknowledge it was a pretty bad week for me, and trust me, I'm feeling it too, but that's in the past now. So let's get into the weeds of it. Frankly, I'm disappointed that neither of you have mentioned the MAC so far, so I'm going to bring the MACtion to the show. First leg, give me Miami, Ohio, +7.5. Miami's a 9-3 team against the spread, and we've seen this movie before. The Redhawks only lost by 4 the first time these two teams met earlier in the season. I'd hate to be a college football favorite in a rematch game because chances are the other team has learned how to fix its mistakes. And something to note, underdogs in the MAC championship game are 70% against the spread. I feel pretty good about UNLV in the Mountain West Championship too. Had it not been for a 1-score loss to San Jose State in Week 13, the Rebels would have been the undisputed champions of the Mountain West in the regular season. But here's what you might not know. UNLV had already clinched a share of the conference title before the game even started. Now, the odds makers have them as the underdogs to Boise State. right where the Rebels want to be. They're 5-0 against the spread as the Dogs this season, plus 116 is the number we got. Let's add it as the second leg. Finally, there is not a thing on this planet, alive or unalive, that could stop me from taking the over in the SEC championship game. For full clarity, I'm on the Crimson Tide too, but I wouldn't call that an instant lock. As for the total, it's going to be a high number, baby. Bama averaging 38 points over its last 4 SEC games. That's enough to take care of the first half of the total, but Georgia's got athletes too. And the SEC championship game, it's prone to be high scoring. Lock it in, please. So in total, that's $15 on Miami, Ohio, plus 7.5, UNLV money line, and the over in the SEC championship for plus 692. That'll net you over $100. Guys, back to you.
Stephen, best of luck to you, man. All right, you know that rule where you probably shouldn't double down on your bets? We're throwing that out the window. We like the teams that we like, and we're not backing down. With that said, let's start with Michigan. He has risen from the ashes of Connor Stallion's burnt footage. Jim Harbaugh is back to rally the troops against an overrated Iowa defense. The Hawkeyes have been playing Big Ten West scrubs for weeks, and it's made their defense look better than it actually is. The Wolverines have a top 10 offense and will score at least 29 points in this one. From plenty of offense to not much of it. I'm taking Michigan over 28.5, and for Florida State, they're not going to score much without Jordan Travis. The Noles have a bad matchup with Louisville, won't score more than 3 touchdowns. Now, we mentioned it earlier, doubling down, I'm going to do that here. FSU under 23.5. Now, the pick I'm most confident in, we talked about it earlier as well, the SEC championship. Not only will Alabama cover plus 6.5, they're going to win this one by at least a field goal. $10 to win over 90 in this parlay. Austin, what do you got?
For my parlay, Jack, I'm also wagering $15 on 3 legs. Leg 1, the over in Bama, Georgia. The Crimson Tide are 8-3 to the over this season. Both offenses have been humming as of late. The Bulldogs have put up at least 30 points in 7 straight contests. Meanwhile, Bama has scored 30+ in 4 of its last 5. Carson Beck is a legitimately good pocket passer. Jalen Milroe on the other side has a cannon of an arm and elite speed. And look, the last 3 SEC title games have totaled at least 65 points. 80 total last year, 65 total in 21 when UGA and Bama squared off, and 98 the year before that. It'll be another shootout at Mercedes-Benz Stadium this Saturday. Michigan, Iowa, on the other hand, won't be a shootout. The under has hit in 10 of the 12 Iowa games this season, like Jack just mentioned. And by all accounts, it's an absolute thrill to root against the points when the Hawkeyes are on. Iowa's only shot in this game is to bleed the clock, so Michigan won't have the ball as much as they like. And I have no idea how Iowa crosses midfield, let alone scores. The thought of them stringing together 3 first downs on a drive feels impossible. Plus, McCarthy, on the other side, has struggled over the last 3 games as well. So the under feels really good there. And then Oregon, look, this can easily lose on a Friday night, and the entire novel that I just spewed would be completely moot, rather. In gambling, though, it's fun to have a strong conviction of a team, and I've been standing on the table for the Ducks. Oregon has been running teams off the field for the last month and a half. If they lay a dud on Saturday, and Saturday comes around and I hate Bo Nix for the rest of my life, then I'll just have to live with that. But that's a risk I'm good with taking. The Ducks will get off to a fast start and not look back. Plus 851 for all 3 legs to hit. $15 wins you over 127. But I'll look back for all the stuff that we've talked about. Let's throw up all the bets. We like a lot of stuff this week. Georgia, Bama. This is one, Jack, where I think we're kind of, you have a strong opinion. I'm kind of 50-50, but ultimately I think Bama will cover the 5.5.
Yeah, I'm big on Bama in this one, and I think largely it's because this is the best team Georgia will face all season long. They haven't been tested as much. Yes, they played good teams, but Bama is playing its best football at the right time, and their quarterback is firing on all cylinders. You can't pick against Nick Saban, right?
You can't pick against Jim Harbaugh either. 21.5, I don't care. Good teams are really good. There's a lot of really good teams this year, and the good teams will keep on rolling. Florida State, kind of a fake good team right now. We get it with the quarterback situation. Louisville at 2.5 seems like free money.
Yeah, listen, Austin, I think if this happened in the middle of the season, you gave it 3 weeks with Tate Rodemaker, and they had to throw out that offense out there, I think Louisville would end up being favored by almost a touchdown. I think there's a good chance they win this game, and Jawar Jordan's a stud. Yeah. They've got this one in the bag.
Big 12 title game, we're kind of split on that, but Oregon, Washington, we are really dug in on Oregon. And I got a few more names to mention. Jackson Powers Johnson is the Oregon center. This guy is an absolute maniac. This guy just loves football to the nth degree. This is a nasty Oregon offensive line blocking for some of the best skilled position players in the entire country. I think Oregon at -9.5, that number is not high enough, Jack. I think they easily win tonight.
Well, I don't know if it's a total blowout, Austin. I don't hate the idea of it being a blowout, obviously, because I'm picking -9.5. I don't necessarily think it'll happen because Washington still plays hard. They're in all of these tight games. The last 8 games they've played since beating Oregon, they're all within 10 points. I think that'll be close to this number. I think Oregon probably wins by about 10 or 13 here.
Ducks, though, 9-2 against the spread this season. And again, they've been absolutely rolling. Some people think they're the second best team in the country. So I really like where Dan Lanning's team is at this season.
I'd have to agree with you. Now let's take a look at our parlays. First, Stephen's got Miami of Ohio, UNLV going off the board for those two. A couple of surprise picks. And then the over in Georgia, Bama, SEC championship game. Don't hate that.
Absolute fireworks there in Atlanta. Stephen, I think he's got a really good slew of picks right there. The MAC pick I love as well.
Now you take a look at my parlay. I've got the over for Michigan scoring, the under for FSU with a backup QB. Bama alternate spread -2.5. I think they win by a field goal over Georgia, and you're sticking with some similar games too, Austin.
Absolutely, Jack. Georgia, Bama over 54.5. I'm rolling with Stephen for that one. I just think that's really easy. Michigan, Iowa under. You're not a true college football fan if you don't bet the under on an Iowa game. This is my first time doing it, so it's new, it's exciting. And then Oregon, like I said, I'm standing on the table. If you stand for nothing, what will you fall for? I'm ready to fall and get my heart broken by the Ducks, but I think that's a bet I will only take.
This is the Bo Nix Heisman party, Austin.
Oh, yeah.
We're both feeling happy about the Ducks. Hopefully we feel happy about all of these games at the end of the weekend. Well, that's all that we've got with Austin Barach. I'm Jack Gordon. Thank you so much to our production crew, and we'll be right back next week with another set of Beat the Bookie.